Stop for a second. The voice in your head right now is deciding your future. Not tomorrow, not someday. Let me ask you a powerful question. Who are you talking to the most every single day? It's not your boss. It's not your family. It's you. And that voice in your head is either building your life or quietly destroying it. Your words are not just sounds. They are commands to your nervous system. They shape how you feel, how you act, and ultimately how you live. Right now, whether you realize it or not, you're using affirmations. If you say, I'm not good enough, I'm tired, I can't do this, your brain believes it and your body follows. But here's the truth. You can reprogram your life by changing the words you repeat. Positive affirmations are not magic. They are mental conditioning. When you repeatedly declare, I am strong, I am focused, I am becoming better every day, your brain begins to search for proof, your posture changes, your energy rises, your actions align, and action is where results are born. Say it with emotion, say it with certainty, say it until your old story loses power, because when you change your inner language, you change your identity, and when your identity changes, your entire life changes. This is your moment. Decide today to speak life into yourself. Decide today to upgrade your standards. Decide today to become the person you were meant to be. Your future is listening. Every single person carries on a conversation inside their own mind from the moment they wake up to the moment they fall asleep. This internal dialogue never stops, and most people never question it. Yet this quiet voice shapes confidence, energy, decisions, and even the direction of an entire life. The way you speak to yourself determines how you experience the world. When that inner voice is encouraging, you feel capable and motivated. When it is negative, doubt becomes a constant companion, and fear quietly takes control. The mind does not argue with repetition. It accepts what it hears most often as truth. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not smart enough, not talented enough, or not lucky enough, your brain begins to operate from that assumption. You hesitate more. You take fewer risks. You lower your expectations. Over time, this self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling pattern, not because it is true, but because you behave as if it were. Your inner voice becomes the invisible hand guiding your actions. Most limitations people experience are not imposed by the outside world, but reinforced internally. Two people can face the same challenge, yet one rises while the other retreats. The difference is rarely intelligence or talent. It is the story they tell themselves in the moment of pressure. One says, this is hard, but I can figure it out. The other says, this is too much for me. Those sentences may seem small, but they produce completely different emotional states. Emotion then drives behavior, and behavior creates results. Your inner voice also controls your focus. When you constantly criticize yourself, your brain searches for evidence of failure. You become hyper-aware of mistakes and blind to progress. This creates a cycle where confidence slowly erodes. On the other hand, when your self-talk is intentional and positive, your mind looks for opportunities, solutions, and growth. You begin to notice what is working instead of what is missing. This shift in focus alone can dramatically change performance and resilience. Self-talk influences the body as well. The nervous system responds instantly to internal language. Negative inner dialogue triggers stress, tension, and fatigue. Positive and empowering words create calm, clarity, and strength. Athletes, performers, and leaders understand this deeply. They do not wait for confidence to appear. They speak confidence into existence through deliberate inner language, especially in moments of discomfort. The inner voice you use today was learned over time, often shaped by past experiences, criticism, or failure. But it is not permanent. It can be trained, redirected, and strengthened. Becoming aware of this voice is the first step toward reclaiming control. When you consciously choose words that support growth rather than fear, you stop living on autopilot. You begin to lead yourself from the inside out. The brain responds to words as if they are instructions, not opinions. When you speak to yourself, your nervous system listens closely and reacts immediately. Every sentence you repeat internally sends a signal that influences your emotional state, your physiology, and your readiness to act. This is why words have power far beyond simple motivation. They function as commands that tell your brain how to interpret reality and how to respond to it. When you say something like, I can't handle this, your brain does not question the statement. It begins to organize your body and attention around that belief. Your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense, and your focus narrows. stress hormones increase, and problem-solving ability decreases. The brain's job is not to judge whether a thought is helpful or harmful. Its job is to obey the instructions it receives most consistently. Language becomes the remote control for your internal state. The opposite is also true. When you say, I am capable or I will find a way, the brain shifts into a different mode. Blood flow increases to areas responsible for creativity and decision-making. Your posture improves, your energy rises, and your perception of difficulty changes. The challenge may still be there, but your internal chemistry supports action instead of avoidance. This is not imagination or wishful thinking. It is a biological response to internal language. Repetition strengthens these commands. A single statement may create a temporary shift, but repeated words create patterns. Neural pathways grow stronger with use, just like muscles in the body. If you repeatedly command your brain with messages of fear, doubt, or weakness, those pathways become automatic. You begin to react before you consciously think. This is why negative self-talk can feel so real and convincing. It has been practiced for years. Positive affirmations work because they interrupt this automatic programming and replace it with new instructions. At first, the brain may resist unfamiliar language. Old patterns push back because they are comfortable and known, but consistency reshapes response. When empowering words are spoken daily, the nervous system learns to respond differently. Confidence becomes more accessible, focus becomes sharper, action becomes easier. The brain also associates words with identity. Statements like I am disciplined or I am improving every day tell the brain who you are. Once identity is defined, behavior follows naturally. You no longer rely on motivation alone. You act in alignment with the commands you have given yourself. Over time, these commands influence habits, decisions, and emotional resilience. Every thought you allow to repeat is training your brain for a specific future. You are either commanding growth or reinforcing limitation. The brain does not distinguish between external voices and internal ones. What you say to yourself carries the same authority as what you hear from others, sometimes even more. By choosing your words deliberately, you take control of the instructions shaping your mind and body each day. Most people believe affirmations are something they either choose to use or ignore, but the reality is that affirmations are already happening constantly. Every repeated thought, reaction, and internal comment is an affirmation shaping perception and behavior. Whether spoken silently or out loud, these statements reinforce beliefs about ability, worth, and possibility. The difference is not whether affirmations exist, but whether they are intentional or unconscious. From the moment you wake up, the mind begins labeling experiences. You tell yourself how you slept, how the day will go, and how you feel about what lies ahead. Statements like I'm already tired, this is going to be a stressful day, or I always struggle with this may seem harmless. But repeated daily, they form powerful mental patterns. These patterns guide attention and influence emotional responses long before any real challenge appears. Unconscious. Affirmations often develop as protective mechanisms. At some point in life, negative self-talk may have helped you avoid disappointment or reduce risk. Over time, however, these phrases become outdated rules running in the BAC. The brain treats them as instructions, adjusting effort, confidence, and expectations accordingly. Without awareness, people continue repeating these statements, reinforcing limitations they no longer need. The mind is highly efficient and prefers familiarity. Repeated affirmations, even negative ones, feel comfortable because they are known. This comfort can be mistaken for truth. When someone says, "That's just how I am," they are often repeating an affirmation that has been practiced for years. The brain interprets repetition as evidence, not accuracy. The longer a statement is repeated, the more real it feels. Every emotional reaction is fueled by an underlying affirmation. Frustration often comes from "this shouldn't be happening." Fear grows from "I'm not ready." Procrastination is supported by "I'll do better later." These are not random thoughts. They are structured affirmations that guide behavior automatically. Once recognized, they can be challenged and redirected. Intentional affirmations work by replacing unconscious ones. The goal is not to deny reality, but to reshape interpretation. Changing "I always fail at this" to "I am learning and improving" shifts emotional response and opens the door to different actions. At first, intentional affirmations may feel unnatural because they interrupt familiar patterns. With repetition, however, they begin to feel normal, and the old statements lose influence. The moment you realize you are already affirming something every day, responsibility returns to you. Awareness creates choice. Instead of allowing random thoughts to define your direction, you begin selecting words that support growth and resilience. This shift does not require perfection, only consistency. By choosing affirmations deliberately, you move from unconscious repetition to conscious creation, training the mind to support the life you want to build. Words alone are not enough to create deep internal change. It is the emotional charge behind those words that gives them power. The brain does not respond strongly to language spoken without feeling. It responds to intensity, meaning, and certainty. When affirmations are repeated in a flat, disconnected way, they remain surface-level thoughts. When they are spoken with emotion, they become experiences that the nervous system remembers. Emotion acts as a signal of importance. When you feel something strongly, the brain pays attention. This is why emotionally charged memories are easier to recall than neutral ones. The same principle applies to affirmations. When you speak words with passion, conviction, or urgency, the brain interprets them as significant and begins to store them more deeply. This strengthens neural pathways and accelerates belief formation. Think about moments of anger, excitement, or determination. In those moments, the words you say to yourself feel absolute. A single emotionally intense thought can change behavior instantly. You stand taller, move faster, or take action without hesitation. This happens because emotion amplifies the message. The body aligns with the thought because it feels real and immediate. Affirmations spoken with emotion influence physiology. Strong emotional language affects breathing, posture, muscle tone, and facial expression. These physical changes send feedback to the brain, reinforcing the belief behind the words. Confidence spoken with energy creates confident posture. Determination spoken with intensity creates strength in the body. The mind and body begin working together instead of in conflict. Many people repeat affirmations quietly, while still emotionally aligned with doubt. The words say one thing, but the feeling says another. The brain trusts emotion more than language. This mismatch weakens the affirmation. For affirmations to work, emotional state must match the message. Even a small amount of genuine belief expressed with feeling is more effective than empty repetition. Emotion can be created intentionally. Voice tone, volume, movement, and facial expression all generate feeling. Speaking affirmations out loud, using strong gestures, and visualizing success while repeating words increases emotional engagement. The brain does not separate imagination from reality when emotion is present. Visualize success when felt deeply creates the same neural response as real experience. Repetition with emotion builds certainty. At first, the feeling may be forced or unfamiliar. Over time, emotional connection grows as the brain gathers evidence to support the new message. Confidence becomes more natural. Motivation increases. What once felt like pretending begins to feel like truth. Emotion turns affirmations from statements into commands. It transforms words into experiences that shape identity and behavior. When affirmations are spoken with feeling, they move beyond thought and become part of how you see yourself and respond to challenges. Consistency is the force that turns words into identity. A single affirmation, no matter how powerful, creates only a temporary shift. It may lift your mood for a moment or spark brief motivation, but lasting change requires repetition over time. The brain is designed to adapt based on what it encounters regularly. What you think, say, and feel most often becomes familiar, and what is familiar becomes part of who you believe you are. Identity is not formed in a single moment. It is built through patterns. Every repeated affirmation sends a message to the mind about what is normal, expected, and true. When you consistently tell yourself, I am disciplined, the brain begins to look for behaviors that match that statement. Small actions such as waking up on time, completing tasks, or resisting distractions start to feel natural rather than forced. Over time, these actions reinforce the belief, and the belief strengthens the actions. Without consistency, affirmations feel hollow. Saying empowering words occasionally while spending most of the day in self-doubt creates confusion in the nervous system. The brain follows the strongest and most frequent signal. If negative self-talk dominates, it will outweigh any positive statement spoken once in a while. This is why daily repetition matters. It is not about intensity alone, but about frequency and reliability. Habits are closely tied to identity. People do not struggle to maintain habits because they lack willpower, but because the habit conflicts with how they see themselves. When affirmations are repeated consistently, they slowly reshape self-image. You begin to act in alignment with the person you believe you are becoming. Discipline, confidence, and focus. Stop feeling like effort and start feeling like expression. Consistency also builds trust within yourself. When you repeat affirmations daily and follow them with small aligned actions, the mind learns that your words mean something. This internal trust reduces resistance and self-sabotage. You stop questioning whether you can change and start assuming that growth is normal. That assumption alone alters decision-making in powerful ways. The timing of affirmations also matters. Repeating them in moments of transition, such as early morning or before sleep, increases impact. During these times, the brain is more receptive to suggestion. Consistent repetition in these windows accelerates identity change because the mind is less distracted and more open. Over time, repeated affirmations fade into the background of awareness. They no longer feel like something you are doing, they feel like something you are. The language becomes automatic and the identity it supports feels stable. This is when real transformation occurs, not when change is forced, but when it becomes familiar. Consistency turns intentional words into an internal standard that quietly guides behavior every day. The language you use shapes the future you move toward, often without you realizing it. Words create meaning, and meaning directs behavior. When you consistently describe your life, your challenges, and yourself in a certain way, you are defining the boundaries of what feels possible. The future is not only built by actions, but by the language that fuels those actions long before results appear. Every choice begins with an interpretation. The words you attach to an experience determine whether it feels like an opportunity or a threat. When you tell yourself this is impossible, the brain immediately looks for ways to disengage. When you say this will require effort, the mind stays engaged and searches for solutions. The situation may be the same, but the language changes the direction of thought and behavior. Over time, these repeated interpretations compound and shape long-term outcomes. Language influences expectation, and expectation shapes performance. When you expect failure, you prepare for it mentally and emotionally. You hesitate, second-guess, and avoid risk. When your language supports growth, you expect progress, even if it is slow. This expectation keeps you in motion. Small improvements accumulate, and what once felt unreachable gradually becomes normal. The future shifts not through dramatic moments, but through repeated internal guidance. Your self-talk also determines resilience. Life inevitably brings setbacks, uncertainty, and discomfort. The words you use during these moments decide whether you recover quickly or stay stuck. Language like this always happens to me, locks the mind into a victim mindset. Language like this is temporary and teachable, keeps the future open. Resilient people are not immune to difficulty. They simply use language that allows forward movement. Upgrading language does not mean ignoring reality. It means describing reality in a way that empowers action. There is a difference between honesty and helplessness. Saying this is challenging acknowledges truth while preserving possibility. Saying I'm not capable closes the door before effort begins. Over time, this distinction becomes the difference between growth and stagnation. The future is shaped by identity-based language. When you repeatedly say, I am becoming stronger, the brain organizes behavior to support that direction. Decisions align with the future version of yourself you describe. Opportunities are noticed that once went unseen. Confidence increases not because circumstances change, but because perception does ever. Your language is quietly setting the tone for what comes next. It determines how you approach challenges, how you recover from setbacks, and how boldly you pursue goals. By consciously upgrading the words you use, you begin shaping a future driven by choice rather than habit. The language you practice today becomes the life you experience tomorrow. The truth is, your life is not shaped only by what happens to you, but by what you repeatedly tell yourself about what happens to you. Every thought, every word, every affirmation is quietly steering your direction. When you change the language inside your mind, you change the energy in your body. When you change that energy, your actions change. And when your actions change consistently, your life cannot stay the same. You don't need a new personality. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for confidence to arrive. Confidence is built through repetition. Belief is built through practice. And transformation begins the moment you decide to speak to yourself with power instead of doubt. From this moment forward, choose your words carefully. Speak strength when things feel hard. Speak growth when progress feels slow. Speak belief even when evidence is still catching up. Your mind is always listening, and it will move you in the direction of the commands you give it. This is not about pretending. This is about programming. This is about becoming intentional with the voice that shapes your future every single day. Your words create your identity. Your identity creates your habits, and your habits create your destiny. Make the decision today to affirm the life you want, not the life you fear. Keep speaking, keep believing, keep showing up. The change you are looking for begins with the next sentence you say to yourself. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and your energy. If this message added value to your life, carry it forward and apply it daily. Remember, the most powerful conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Stay focused, stay committed, and keep affirming your greatness. Thank you, and goodbye.